Now in 4.5 chapter 4, besides your xylem and phloem, right, I feel 4.4 phytoremediation is also a very important topic because this topic actually does come in the essay, which I will do an example later. So the three main plants that I will do in this video is sunflower, water hyacinth, and also water lettuce. So for the first question is about the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl. So whenever you see the Chernobyl nuclear plant disaster, right, just remember this disaster actually released a lot of radiation to the surrounding because nuclear ma. And sunflower is mainly used to actually absorb the radiation and also heavy metals from the soil. So the first question they ask, identify method carried out by the sunflower. So the method is basically what this topic is about lah, phytoremediation. Now the word phyto means plant and the word remedy means you use plant to treat, to cure the environment, to cure the pollution in the environment. So that's what this topic is about lah. I use plants to cure pollution. So next they ask definition. Yeah, so phytoremediation, they quite like to ask definition, which the definition is a treatment method. That's what remediation means, whereby I use plants, and that's what phyto is. And then you must write these three words: extract, eliminate, and degrade. So extract and eliminate means you absorb the pollute substance, you absorb, and then you degrade it. Certain plants, they actually can break this pollute substance down. Alright, so we're going to write these three words. Okay, so extraction, elimination, and degradation of pollute substances in soil and water. So yeah, extract, eliminate, degrade. Remember these three words lah. Okay. Now, then they ask, sunflower, they act as a hyperaccumulator. Now, this term actually in our textbook got one. So sunflower, they're a bit more special than the other plants we're going to go through because sunflower, they can accumulate something called this hyper. Okay, this hyper actually refers to heavy metals mainly, which are very toxic metals that are released during this nuclear disaster lah. So plants that are able to accumulate heavy metals. So this is what the hyper refers to. So they can accumulate heavy metals, which you must take the example, which in chemistry, I think you could learn a few ones. So these three mini law, zinc, copper, lead. So these three are the easier one. Now, other than these three, you also can say chromium, nickel. Yeah, so there's a few more lah, but zinc, copper, lead should be the easiest example lah. So this is basically around 2 marks. So you mentioned heavy metals, you mentioned the example, that's the second mark. So they can accumulate these heavy metals in their tissues. Okay, so that's basically sunflower. They absorb radiation and heavy metals, and they are known as hyperaccumulator. Now, the next one, they talk about waste plant. So if they ask plant found near waste plant, so waste plant is like your household domestic wastewater. They always like to plant these certain plants on top of it, which I already put a picture here. Ta-da! So this is actually called water lettuce. When you see wastewater, there's only one example, water lettuce. And then, of course, the next question you need to know, what does this plant do in wastewater? What does it help to eliminate? Okay, it helps to eliminate two things. It will absorb two things from the wastewater. Number one, we will say heavy metals as well. Okay, because yeah, sometimes your household domestic water got a bit of heavy metals. And number two is absorb nutrients. Okay, I write the answer first. Now, nutrients, you might be asking, what do you mean by absorb nutrients? Okay, these nutrients are basically like nitrates and phosphates, which are mainly found in our urine and also our poop. So these nutrients, right, will actually cause algae to grow on the water. So if you release this water straight into river and ponds or even sea, right, you will pollute the sea and river. So I want to use this water lettuce to absorb these nitrates and phosphates to prevent growth of bacteria and also growth of algae on the water lah. So that's what the nutrients are mainly referring to. But when you explain the time, right, you just have to say heavy metals, 1 mark, nutrients, 1 mark. That's it. So that's what water lettuce does, 2 marks only. And the phytoremediation question that I quite often see they ask in essay, right, is actually this one called the water hyacinth. Now, when the question asks, aquatic plant used to treat lake water with high ammonia content. So I use, now it's not wastewater like just now already, now it's lake water, lake or pond, and used to absorb, treat ammonia. There's only one example, which is water hyacinth. Now it's not the water lettuce like just now already lah. So I already put the picture here side by side to help you identify. So water lettuce look like this, just now that one. Now water hyacinth, they got like flower one, and their roots usually very long. So if you see a floating plant, the roots very long one, that is water hyacinth. And it's usually used in lake water to absorb ammonia. So explain how the plant can be used to treat ammonia content in the lake. Now this is an essay question, so we are aiming around 4 to 5 marks at that. So number one, mention the name of the plant first. So this essay, did he mention what plant it is? So you can say number one, we use water hyacinth. Okay, so that's how you spell water hyacinth. And number two, mention the method, phytoremediation. So you mention the name of the plant, you mention phytoremediation, is actually 2 marks for your essay question already. Okay, then of course, we mention what does this plant do to treat the ammonia? So it basically absorbs the ammonia in the water. So that's the most basic thing. The roots can absorb ammonia and then it's able to accumulate ammonia in its tissue. So it's sort of like a hyper accumulator like the sunflower just now also. So you absorb already, can accumulate inside the plant. Okay, now when you explain this already, right, it's 4 marks, but sometimes they ask up to 5. So the 5th point, you must say the adaptation, the characteristics of this plant. So what makes this plant so useful in absorbing ammonia is that its roots can grow quite long and deep into the lake. So it doesn't just absorb the surface beneath ammonia, it can absorb ammonia that are quite deep into the pond or the lake. So its roots can grow deep. And then this kind of plants also, right, it can grow and reproduce very fast as well. Yeah, so you can have many water hyacinth in a short period of time to help you absorb a lot of this ammonia in the lake. And next question is the advantage and disadvantage. Okay, quite difficult actually. So 6 marks. Now more advantage actually compared to disadvantage. So the advantage is, right, it's plant. Plants are very cheap. So it's very cost efficient, very low cost. So that's the first thing we can say. And plants are something that is natural. So you don't add additional chemicals into the environment. So it's environmental friendly. So you also can say it does not involve chemical substances and it's environmental friendly. So these are very basic, easy points you can remember. Cheap, environmental friendly. And lastly, it does the job, meaning you can say, this actually can help permanently remove the ammonia, because once they absorb the ammonia, right, they accumulate inside the plant. They don't release it back. So you can remove the pollute substances permanently. However, the disadvantage is plant absorb substances very slow. So if you want to do it very quickly, it's not the best choice lah. So it's time consuming. And number 2, there are actually animals, fishes that eat this plant. So if they eat this plant, the pollute substance will enter the food chain. So you will pass ammonia from one organism to another. So that is the second one you can say. Heavy metals can enter the food chain if they are eaten by animals. Right, other than phytoremediation, okay, I do one more bonus one with you all, guttation. Okay, guttation, commonly they like to ask us to compare with transpiration. Now, if you don't know what is guttation, I can briefly go through first. Now, if you look at these two diagrams, you must know how to differentiate which is guttation, which is transpiration. Now, transpiration is where water evaporates through the stoma of the leaf. So this is definitely transpiration. And guttation, right, you can see the water actually coming out from the side of the leaf. Actually, it occurs through a hole called hydrotopes. Now, transpiration occurs mainly during the day because we know, right, during the day, the time stoma opens and then the water evaporates. But during the night, stoma closes. So water is being eliminated through another hole called the hydrotopes. So how does guttation occur? I put the answer on the screen while I explain. So number 1, during nighttime, roots of the plant, they still continuously pump mineral ions by active transport and also absorb water. That's why it causes the root pressure to still be high. So this root pressure basically pushes water all the way until the leaf. Now, as water accumulates in the leaf, right, they need to find a way to get rid of this excess water. Now, since stoma is closed, we will then say excess water is then eliminated through these hydrotopes. So this is called guttation. So around a 3 to 4 marks punya explanation. Now, if they ask essay, compare, it can go up to around 8 marks. Yeah, around 8 marks like that or even 10 marks also sometimes. So I give you a 10 mark punya comparison. Now, if it's 10 marks, we need to have 3 similarities. If it's 6 to 8, 2 will be enough Now, first, both of these processes we can say occurs at the leaf. So it occurs actually through the leaf So I just write here, it occurs at leaf. Number 2, right, both of these processes actually eliminate water. They throw water out. So we will say they have permanent loss of water. So these two are the more easier punya similarities. Now, if they want you to write more marks, like say 10 marks, okay, you need a third one. Okay, the third one, you can say this, whereby both involve transport of water and mineral salt in the xylem. So both you need to transport water to the leaf one. So it involves transport of water and mineral salt in the xylem Now, if this is an essay question, you can start by mentioning the process. Remember, in essay punya comparison, right, you mention the unknown got marks. So if you write transpiration, guttation, that's 1 easy mark already. Then the next 3 difference, right, Okay, I purposely arranged this tree first because this tree will be easier to remember. So let's say if you're doing section A structure question, usually structure question around 2 to 3 difference enough already, right? So you write this few easier one, surely enough marks here, right? So this tree can see relate to the water. Now, but remember in structure question, 2 to 3 marks no difference, right? You write process no marks one, only SA can remember. So what's different about the waters? Even though both of them release water, but they release them differently. So for transpiration, right, water actually evaporate. So water evaporate that time is actually vapor. But for this water, right, I actually force them out. So they are in the form of what we call as droplet. So number one is the form of water. So the first one is transpiration, water release in the form of water vapor, you will say. While guttation is in the form of water droplet. So it's one drop punya water, you can see it one. But for this one you cannot see because it's evaporation. It's like basically I open my bottle water cap, the water evaporate, I cannot see one. So that's exactly transpiration. The stoma open, water evaporate, you cannot see one. Then next, the contents of water. So water vapor is always pure water. There's nothing in it one. So the water release is pure water. It's like you have salt water or shit water here, right? When the water evaporate at time, the contents will not evaporate. Only the water evaporate. The shit takkan will evaporate one. And then guttation, this water directly comes from the roots. So it will contain mineral salts. So we say it is rich in mineral salts. And then where does the water come out from? We already mentioned stoma, hydrotopes. So this is stoma, and then this one is hydrotopes. So yeah, this should be the easiest difference because the way you release water is very different. Okay, but if it's essay, you need more than that, of course. So far we got 7 points really, 4 difference, 3 similarities. Next, when does it occur? We also mentioned at the beginning of this topic, transpiration occurs during the day. But remember to say during hot and windy day. Because if it's a rainy day, there will be no transpiration. For this one, it occurs during nighttime or early morning, whereby usually early morning you will see water dripping out from the side of the leaf. So we say during night, early morning. Next is the type of plants. Transpiration is a very basic process in plants. So it occurs in all plants. However, guttation only occurs in non-woody plants. So we will say herbaceous plant. Yeah, like grass. That's why early in the morning when you step on grass, right, grass are usually wet because they are herbaceous plants. They undergo guttation during the night. And then the last one is basically what causes each of the process to occur. Transpiration is controlled by the opening and closing of stoma. Sorry, here got typo. And for guttation, it's caused by the root pressure. So it occurs when root pressure is high because the root pressure will push the water out from the hydrotopes. So actually, we still have one more question. I haven't ended the video. So usually for guttation, they quite like to ask this question as well. So we need to go through, explain the effects towards plant if they do not undergo process Q. So if there's no guttation, what will happen? So as we mentioned earlier, guttation is a process, an alternate process of plant eliminating water during the night because the stoma closes. So if there's no guttation, basically the plant cannot eliminate excess water and salt. So I put the answers on the screen. Excess salt and water cannot be eliminated. It's like you cannot pee at that. Next is, if there's no guttation, excess water will accumulate more and more in the leaf. So the leaf veins pressure will start to increase. The pressure getting more and more water. Now if the pressure is too high, the leaf vein could burst. And if the leaf vein bursts, germs, pathogens will come into the plant and attack the plant. So you can see the leaf will be attacked by pathogens. And what happens to the leaf? The leaf might die and also fall. So if you write all the points I just mentioned, it's around 5 marks already. So hopefully this video actually helped out you all with chapter 4, form 5, especially the essay questions. So I'll see you guys in my next video real soon. Bye-bye.